Alright, we are live. My name is Josh. This is the Social Otaku Podcast, episode number 1. Hopefully we'll have more coming out pretty soon here. We're hoping to do this weekly. And here's my co-host, Elliot. Alright, so today we are going to be talking about self-confidence.
Ooh, good subject.
And it's like we spoke about it before going on. Wouldn't that be nice?
Yes. It's almost like we planned these things.
Alright, so if you've seen our panels at anime conventions, you'll know a little bit about what the Social Otaku is, but because this is the first podcast that we're doing, I'll introduce it a little bit. So the Social Otaku is our way of trying to get people a little more social who are nerds, who sometimes have an issue, getting themselves out there, being more social, especially because, maybe you're an introvert like me, or maybe you just, have all this self-doubt, because again, I'm an introvert, but I know, Elliot, you're not an introvert, right?
I would not be. I'm what they classify as an extrovert.
And we both in the past had our issues with socializing, so that's what this whole thing is about. So our first subject today, self-confidence, is probably the big first step, which is why we want to talk about it today. We've spoken about it before, and we've done a lot of preparation for our panels and things like that, but just as a preface, we didn't script anything out for this podcast. We didn't set specific talking points. We're basically just going to be having a conversation and bringing up some points that we think should hopefully be helpful.
Yeah. Form of this is a little bit loosey-goosey, but I think we have a lot to say about this. Definitely, there's a lot of things to bring up with this can of worms.
Yeah, and some of the things we'll bring up today are probably things that we'll need to go more in depth in later podcasts. Because a lot of this, it gets very complicated, but for the sake of this particular subject, since we're talking about kind of the general subject of confidence, I think it's probably a good idea to just keep it to, we might mention some complicated things, we might go into some things that, we'll need to expand upon later, but this should hopefully be a good starting point. So where do we want to start?
Josh, how do I get confidence?
oh, just putting it on me. Well, and I know you suggested doing an episode specifically on this later on. I think we do. But one concept that I bring up is fake it till you make it. Because there's, and again, this gets a little bit more complicated, or at the very least, we can definitely go into more depth, but I would say confidence is something that needs to be brought out through practice, and oftentimes you'll have to do things that are basically acting confidence when you may not necessarily feel like you are the most confident in that moment. So, for example, better posture is a good thing. That's not really faking it, but you get my drift.
It's helping you.
Yeah, it's helping you, and I'll get into posture in just a second, but try your best to act confident, and as we get more into what confidence actually is, hopefully you'll know a little bit more what that means. But just a note on the posture. Good posture is not only good for your health, it's not only good for your back, but believe it or not, if you're hunched over or you cross your arms or things of that nature, just some kind of bad posture, that actually is a signal to your brain to feel more defensive, to feel less confident, to feel less comfortable. And standing up straight with your shoulders back is actually, it's physically triggering your brain to believe that you are more in control of the situation, that you are more confident, and it can improve your confidence, it can improve your mood. There have been several studies by, I think it's like Columbia University and Harvard about this kind of stuff. And, just improving your posture will help you just feel more comfortable in situations, as well as signal to other people that you're confident. And this touches on things like body language and things like that. That'll definitely need to be split up into probably multiple other podcasts, but just good posture is a really good place to start.
I have a mirror in my room, and I noticed as I've been talking to you, I've been kind of slouching and folding my arms. So, because this is my first time kind of doing this sort of podcast thing, and I'm not showing that confidence, and that might be showing that I'm not talking too much. But now that I have this road work, I think I'm going to do this podcast now, standing up, breathing through my nose, out through my mouth. Hopefully, not too loud, where I pop the mic or anything, but definitely, yeah, doing something doing something that you haven't done before is definitely going to make you nervous. And whenever you do stand up straight, put your arms back like that, you're gonna it's just gonna change the way your cognition goes. And I'm gonna do that during this podcast.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm really glad that you brought that up. Just noticing something about yourself, because that's actually another way to boost confidence, is to notice things about yourself, whether it's positive or negative. Like, noticing you have bad posture is the first step to getting better posture. Noticing different behaviors that you have when you're nervous, or different things that work for you. Um, one thing that I found is, if you look at something that is inherently positive. So let's say people give you compliments about your artwork. Let's say you're a fan artist and you like making fan art of your favorite anime characters, which I think I just bumped the mic, sorry about that. Um, so you get a bunch of these compliments, but you're always telling yourself, "Oh no, I'm just, I'm not really that good. Anyone could have done this. There's so many better people," and you fall into this trap of self-deprecation, which in and of itself is bad. But one thing that you can do is sit there and go, "Okay, a lot of people are telling me that I'm good at this. What is it about my artwork that they're saying is good? Why do I make other people happy when they look at my art?" Because when you ask yourself a question, and this is neurolinguistic programming, or NLP, which is definitely going to be, I might even do a whole series, a separate series on NLP, but suffice it to say, for a brief explanation of NLP, is how you talk to yourself and how you talk to others, and how it affects your mind and your emotions. So in this case, when you ask a question, you require an answer. So you'll notice a lot of people will answer rhetorical questions, and that's just a sign of them needing to answer something. So when you ask yourself a question, your brain is going to be driven to come up with some kind of answer. So if you ask, why am I so good at this? Why do people like this about me? Why was I successful at school, or something like that? Your brain's going to come up with something positive and something true about you that you can hold on to and continue to be more confident.
Yeah, to kind of piggyback off of that, I remember I went to college and I was studying music, and I always had these doubts about myself, like, oh, I'm gonna be this musician that no one listens to, no one really likes my work. And I was just singing Fauré's Requiem, good piece, and my professor told me something very interesting. I was like, oh man, it's kind of hard getting these tenor 2 notes because I'm used to singing tenor 1. And he's like, you're a music major. I mean, like, you've made it this far in your like music career. I mean, should be a piece of cake for you. And that just hit something in my brain where I was like, am I a music major? Am I really that good at music? And I've had to question these things about myself, like, oh yeah, I am a music major. I did spend a lot of time studying this stuff. And after he just told me that simple thing, it just clicked in me like, oh, I am good at music. Like all this practice that I put in does mean things that have helped me in the future and have helped me in the past. And I've just been kind of neglecting myself, like, oh, I'm not that good at music, or like, man, this is so hard. Like, how am I not getting this? But then I just changed it to like, yeah, I am good at music.
Yeah, I you've had quite some issues with self-deprecation a lot. um,
Yes.
but you've worked on that yourself, and you've definitely gotten better. Um, I've kind of tried to work on it with you. You've been a bit of my pet project for a while.
I am. WIP,
I don't even know what that stands for.
work in progress.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, I can. Something I noticed about myself is I can be a bit oblivious about things sometimes, um, which it's been a struggle for me personally. Getting into the social space, because not only was I well, not only am I an introvert, but I was also bullied a lot. I was I don't want to say betrayed, but like there were some people who I thought were my friends, but they were technically bullies, keeping
Yeah.
in somewhat of my good graces just enough to, make a joke at my expense and things like that. Um, just a lot of negative things in my past and in my social interactions. And because of that, a lot of people lack the confidence to talk to others, even if they're extroverts. Like, if you've been outcast or just for whatever reason not in the social sphere for a while, you can feel very uncomfortable. And I know a lot of people who are definitely extroverts but consider themselves introverted because they have this kind of social anxiety that they've developed. And the other thing is that I do have, actual social anxiety. Well, I used to have, haven't had one in a while, fortunately, but I used to have panic attacks just from, basic social interactions with friends to, being in a big crowd of people for too long and things like that. It took a while, but that confidence needs to be built back up because everyone needs to be social. Everyone needs
Yes.
that type of interaction. And I don't know if I necessarily want to get into the differences between introverts and extroverts right now, since we're talking about confidence, but
It's up to you. I think we should maybe put that a little bit later.
yeah, I'm gonna stick a stick a pin in that.
Yeah. We'll put it on the back burner. Yeah, I've definitely noticed hanging out with you a lot. I think you said you haven't had a panic attack, and that is true. I haven't seen you really go into a social panic attack. I saw you get kind of close one time while we were hanging out at a Whataburger, and like I was like, wow, like Josh, like for after I think it was after or before doing the Social Otaku panel, like I just um noticed that something was off. And then I think Garrett and I just like had to coerce you back in and be like, man, you're awesome. And having good friends too really
Yeah,
helps you.
yeah. There's I'm hoping I'm remembering the quote right. There's a quote from Iroh from Avatar: Last Airbender. Uh, while believing in oneself is always a good thing, a little help from others. God, what's the end of the quote? But it's something along the lines of believing in oneself is great, but a little help from others can go a long way.
Yeah.
Which, now that I stopped trying to say the actual quote, I think I just said the actual quote.
I was gonna say to go a long way, but I'm like, I don't know if that is. That
No,
just
no,
sounds
yeah,
logical.
yeah. It sounds right. It flows off the tongue. But yeah, it's. No, I just lost my train of thought.
Oh, Yeah. I noticed with me, um, I I started out as a bullied kid in, I guess, elementary school, a little bit early up to middle school. But I think around eighth grade, ninth grade, I was just like, this is a new me. These people kind of know me, but I'm just gonna like change the way I think about myself. And I kind of became the weirdo kid in ninth to 12th grade. And I really didn't get too much social until I was in college. But I don't know, just for a long time, I spent a lot of my life always on the defensive. Like anytime someone would make a loud noise, I'd be like turning my back, be like, "What's that?"
Mm-hmm.
Because I was afraid like someone's gonna give me a wedgie or something, or someone's gonna like pants me. And just over time, becoming more confident, talking to people. Uh, Speaking of talking to people, I had to talk to insurance today, and let me tell you,
Oh
if
boy.
you're not ready to talk to insurance people and do like tech support or talking with other people over the phone, it's a daunting task, I tell you.
Oh yeah, I mean that's where Elliot and I originally met was the call center. That was
That that will
okay.
test your faith in people and how you can respond to that. But I got confident. I said, "Hey, we're gonna make this claim," and I just had to like call them up, and I'm like, I tried to actually shirk it off to my mom. I'm like, "Mom, can you please do this?" She's like, "No, Elliot, you got to have confidence in yourself." And you know what? I called him, and I everything went the way I wanted it to.
Yeah, and that's the thing is uh, uh another very important part of confidence is just doing something. Like, you're gonna find
Absolutely.
reasons to tell yourself it's okay that you don't do this. It's okay if I take a little longer with this art project. It's okay if I take a little longer calling the bank or, going out with friends or something like that. Just find something that you can do, decide to do it, and then do it. Don't overthink it. Don't decide that you need to try something else or try to put it off. Just do it. And
Yeah.
eventually, I do say eventually, but I kind of threw myself in head first in this sense. But eventually, you do want to try getting yourself out of your box. So, start with things that you're at least somewhat comfortable with. Start off with things that you know you can do, and make sure that you don't convince yourself to not do them. But eventually, you will need to do something that's uncomfortable. That's a good way to build confidence is get out of your comfort zone and do your best, because that'll help you find your limits. Sometimes it'll be easier than you thought it was, or other times it's just you didn't have the experience before or enough experience before of doing this thing. So what I ended up doing was I wanted to hang out with my friend Colin. Uh, After a lot of bad stuff had happened and we hadn't really had a chance to hang out for quite some time, and we decided, you know what, we're gonna do something together, and we decided to go to a bar, and we started going to bars and clubs, and it was like almost an every week thing. We don't do it quite as much these days, just because we're both incredibly busy and that gets pretty expensive. So
Yeah.
yeah, we don't do it as often. But I was definitely, like I said earlier, I have social anxiety. My social anxiety was pretty darn bad back then, and I decided, you know what, I really need to push myself. I need to get out of my comfort zone. I need to be more confident. So I started going out to bars, going out to clubs, and sometimes I would have a panic attack. But uh, you know, just getting the experiences, you realize that there are ways of doing things that are not as bad as you thought. And so at this point, I can easily go pretty much anywhere with confidence. But even if my anxiety is kind of creeping up, I can quite comfortably go to a bar with a bunch of people there, and talk to a couple friends while I'm there, or even by myself. So I have that confidence because I went for those experiences.
And I will say, Josh is kind of selling himself a little bit short here. Every time I go into a different bar with him, like all the people who work there, like know Josh, and they're always like, "Oh, you hang out with this guy? I love this guy. He's great." Like, yeah, he made it his job to like talk to everyone there and always like be around, socializing and whatnot. And I think it's just a testament to how far like Josh is really going out there and putting himself with that confidence. Like every time I go, they're like there's always somebody who knows you, either be it who hangs around there frequently or someone who works there. I'm always like shaking someone's hand every time I go there because they're like, "Oh, you know this guy?" And I'm like, "I guess so."
Well, yeah, you also like it because you get VIP treatment at 77.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, like I'm not necessarily a big spender at there's a place nearby called 77 Degrees. It's kind of a lounge bar with a club next door. And they got to know me. I know most of the bouncers. I don't know as many of the bartenders because I haven't been going out as much, and some of the people we used to see there a lot aren't working there anymore. They either got fired, or more of them ended up finding opportunities somewhere else. But I mean, that's one of the things. If you're gonna go out there to socialize, just socialize. Don't go out there and be like, I'm gonna be more social today, and then go sit in the corner with a drink. That doesn't work.
Yeah, it really doesn't. Because if you're just going out there just to go out there and you're like, "Oh, I'm gonna socialize," and then you do that bad body posture, you sit in the corner, you shrunk your shoulders, you slouch and look unapproachable, like that's gonna. I'm not gonna say it might be a negative feedback loop where just like you keep on doing it and then it just keeps on piling on and piling on. Like people don't approach you because of the posture, but you do the
Hmm.
posture because people aren't approaching you, and it's like, oh boy.
Yeah, a lot of negative behaviors really seem to come from uh, just spiraling, just these vicious cycles that don't lead anywhere. And it also kind of goes back to, decide you're going to do something and then do it, because later on you're going to, you're going to go there, you're not going to talk to anyone, you're going to have maybe a couple drinks, and then you go home, and then your brain later that night is going to be like, oh, I didn't talk to anyone, and it's going to be just another failure on your books. So at least attempt to talk to someone, and then if you do manage to talk to someone you don't know, all you have to do is go home and think back and go, hey, I did talk to someone, and give yourself that positive reinforcement, because you deserve that. You went and you spoke to at least one person that you didn't know.
Yeah, it's always good to. I always find it very fun to talk to people I don't know. Whenever I'm hanging out with Josh, I just would say, if you're having like that anticipation and you're like, I don't know if I should be doing this all alone or by myself, maybe invite a friend. Maybe like try to be a wingman for your friend. Be a how do you say friend wingman?
Uh, I don't know. I
I don't
guess
know.
it would just be a friend wingman,
Yeah, be a friend wingman.
a wing
Like
wing
back
friend.
each other up.
So at this point, now that we've talked a little bit about some of the basics of being more confident, and I try not to say I again, I caught myself.
Uh
I
oh.
There I go again. I caught myself doing something that shows me as less confident, and that would be saying while I'm trying to think of something. And what that is, the ums, the likes, the you knows, the little injections that you put in there are thought stoppers. And again, this is going to be something that will probably need to have its own episode. But we warned you at the beginning. Some of these are definitely going to need their own episodes. But
Absolutely.
when you put a stopper in there, it kind of throws you off. And
That's
I just went on a whole tangent about that and then lost what I was going to say before. Good for me.
That's something that I need to definitely work on and do more research on, is because I notice I stall a little bit here and there, especially whenever. Oh, see there, but especially
Well, you just remind me what I was going to say, so go ahead.
When parents come in and talk to me, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to talk to parents.
Right, right.
Put on that spot.
I just again. Gah, I'm in the habit of it now. Gah.
You're only gonna notice it the more you point it out.
I know. I'll try. I'll try not to consciously point it out, but just know that from here on, I'm definitely going to notice when I So what I was gonna bring up before was that when I notice that I'm saying the that's another kind of callback to noticing something negative and then understanding it and making sure that I know the better way of putting it, that I notice that I do it, but I don't berate myself for doing it. I kind of jokingly made a bit of a deal about it, kind of growled a little bit, but I'm not sitting here thinking I'm a terrible person, I shouldn't be doing a podcast because I said But that is something I need to. Don't do that, Elliot. Don't you do that.
I do know there's a woman that I paid for in lieu of psychological services. You know, that some people need to have that happen sometimes. I'm definitely one of them. And she told me something very important: challenge negative thoughts. I'm like, oh, I think I'm a piece of crap. No. Nay, I am not a piece of crap. I am here. I'm breathing. I do good in this world. I have a job. People like me at my job. I'm not a piece of crap. And it's just something simple like that. Just whenever a negative thought comes into your mind, challenge it. Don't just be like piling on about those negative thoughts. That's what she always tells me. I don't necessarily adhere to it all the time, but whenever I'm really down in the dumps, that piece of advice just comes back to me. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna challenge that today. I'm gonna challenge the way I think. That helps me sometimes when I'm at my lowest.
Yeah, that's definitely something to keep in mind. And I did see it when I was doing some research to kind of remind myself of things that we'll need to talk about today, was challenging things that you find negative about yourself or challenging your own self-deprecation. It's really helpful, and as he just said, it can be very important. At some point, we'll need to... Sorry, I just got a notification, distracted me. So I don't know why I started with at some point, because I'm trying to transition into the next part of this. First stream issues. So what I wanted to move on to for the next part of this would be just talking about going forward with confidence. So you've started to stand up straight. You've started to kind of gain that self-worth. But at some point, you're also going to need to use that confidence. So I think at this point, we'll need to talk about what confidence actually means. Confidence doesn't mean arrogance. It doesn't mean that you're full of yourself. Confidence doesn't mean that you feel like you're the most important person in the room. What confidence means is that you are comfortable in a situation. You are comfortable with speaking your opinion. You're comfortable with saying what you think ought to be said, whether you think you have a joke that's really funny, or you want to put in your opinion, or you want to interject into a conversation. Confidence is being able to do that without thinking, maybe I shouldn't. Well, maybe. There are no maybes. Confidence is, yes, I can do this. Confidence is being in a situation and understanding that you and everyone else are going to be okay in that situation, or that, what am I trying to say? That you are not in danger simply by socializing. Confidence is just the idea that you are, I wanted to put it a different way, but I guess the best way to put it is that you are comfortable, that you are able to exist and able to work in pretty much any environment, because you can be confident with your D&D group and then completely out of sorts somewhere else. True confidence is having the same level of comfort for pretty much any social situation. You'll definitely be more comfortable when you're just with friends at D&D, or you might be more comfortable in other situations where you're with people that you know get you, or that you're close with, and things of that nature. But you need to have a baseline of the ability to be in a completely new situation and be just as comfortable as you would be in a different one. So I, for one, am just as comfortable in a bar as I am at a restaurant where no one's paying attention to you. I'm in a booth. We're kind of closed off from everyone else. It's just me and a friend. But there are also other people there. So I'm confident in that situation with me and my friend. But conversely, if I'm at a bar by myself with no one that I know, I am just as confident in that situation. I'm just as comfortable in that situation.
Yeah. And the thing that sucks about confidence sometimes is that it takes a while to, it's not just, oh, I'm just going to feel confident today. Sometimes that works, but true confidence takes that time to work on. You're not just going to immediately come out and be like, hey, it's me, I'm so confident.
Yeah,
Takes
no.
time.
Yeah, confidence is it not only takes time, but it's a continuous effort.
Yes.
If I get sick, and I do have a chronic condition, so there are points where I'll get sick and I'll be out of commission for a very long time. If I get sick and I don't talk to anyone, or if I start having anxiety issues, and again, I don't talk to anyone and I kind of shut myself out for a while, I will become, even just slightly, but I will become less confident. And the longer I'm out of commission, the longer I don't do something to help with my confidence, the longer it's going to take to get that back. So it's a constant effort. Even for me, someone who, you've heard Elliot, kind of praising me here, and I'll brag a little bit. I was nominated Employee of the Month and was in the top 10%, as was Elliot, in the top 10% of the company that we're talking about, that we were working at for a call center, which we'll leave unnamed. But
They've won awards.
yeah, they've won several awards for their customer service, and for us to be within the top 10% of that organization for customer service, that right there shows you that we've come long ways, and we know what we're talking about. But it's still going to take a long time, and it's always a continuous effort.
And even whenever I was working that job, even though I was top 10%, I'll be honest with you, I was not in a good place mentally. I was honestly throwing up every day working that job.
He was. I was there. Not in the restroom while he was throwing up. I was just there to hear the after effects. Just, oh, hey, Josh, I threw up again.
It was every day, and it took me a while to realize that you can be good at something and you can be confident, but if you're going through stress like that, sometimes it's better to just let it go.
Yeah, that's another thing about confidence. If there seems to be no possible way that you can be confident in a situation, you don't necessarily have to leave right then and there, although you can if it's that bad. But if you're noticing that you're continuously having issues in a certain social situation, and you can't find any way that you can fix that or remedy that, there is absolutely no reason for you to continue being in that situation. At a certain point, there's confidence and then there's stupidity.
Yes.
And again, confidence is not stupidity. Confidence is not arrogance. Confidence is not thinking that you're the best ever in every situation. It is simply being comfortable in that situation. And if you're uncomfortable, sometimes you can just work within that. Once you've developed confidence, that will help. But other times, there's just no getting around it.
Yeah. And as much as I dislike that time that I spent there, I would not trade it for anything in the world. It showed me a lot of things, gave me a lot of new skills that I use today, and I met a lot of people from it. Like, there's always a positive from it.
Oh yeah, definitely. And it certainly took me longer for the stress to get to me, but as a natural introvert, no matter how good I was at that job, that was just very stressful, which is why I'm now going full-time into voice acting and things that I actually enjoy. But but once again, just like Elliot, I also gained a lot of good information from that job. It also helped me figure out a lot of the things that I teach in my Social Otaku panels. It helps me with a lot of the things that that I use in everyday life. I certainly did more research on my own that dwarfs the research that I did there, but me being a nerd, because again, this podcast is for nerds.
Not jocks. I'm a jock, you know.
I mean, technically you were at one point.
Ugh, don't remind me.
But yeah, what was I saying?
You were saying, oh my gosh.
I guess the lesson is we probably should script things out at least a little bit.
Oh, we were talking about learning stuff and how it dwarfs
Oh,
in
right.
comparison.
Yeah,
We're nerds.
yeah. So because I'm a nerd, I ended up deciding, once I got out of high school, I decided I am going to be more confident. I am going to be more social, and I honestly, what I wanted to be was as confident and as social and as charismatic as I could possibly be. And while this first podcast may not be the best example with our continuous issues, I think I think I'm well on my way to accomplishing that. But the way I went about it was I decided, you know what, I'm just going to do research, because I didn't have the experience that extroverts had. Because the number one reason why introverts and extroverts differ in their social abilities is not because there's any like inherent social ability that they have, but just because the introverts don't seek out the social situations nearly as much. And that gets into, like we described earlier, one of those vicious cycles where you don't seek it out, and so you're not as good at communicating, and so you're not as good at communicating, so you seek out less, and so on and so forth. And some extroverts get into that same cycle where, they may desire that social interaction, but they still have issues with it. They still, because they were maybe ostracized or bullied, like Elliot was, he's still an extrovert, but he started lacking in social skills because there was this vicious cycle of him self-doubting and then not getting in as many social situations and then having worse social skills, etc., like we said before. That type of thing will happen.
Yeah, and I didn't really get over it until I'd say recently, where I'm putting myself out there in the thing I am most confident in, and that is music. I am singing in a bunch of choirs. I'm singing in a bunch, or playing in a bunch of bands. Well, just one band, but still, you get the point. Like the thing I'm most confident in. It took me a while to realize that I went to school for this, and I still had to realize that I can't give up on my dream of music. Like I went to where we worked, and I gave up um, playing my saxophone. I still sang, but I gave up the saxophone, and that's the music. That's the instrument I was most trained on. And can you imagine giving up the thing that you most trained on and you're most confident with, or at least I was most confident with? It didn't sit right with me, and it wasn't till this year that I'm like, I'm gonna have to get out there. I'm gonna have to find a band, and luckily I found one, and it's been the best thing for me ever since.
Yeah, definitely do more of what you love. Like, we did talk about going out there and breaking your boundaries, but we did start that out with saying do something that you're more comfortable with, or at least that you're passionate about. We do
Yes.
these panels at anime conventions, and a lot of people there go there, and they're still not comfortable at the convention, but they're at least comfortable enough to go. And you should find something that you can go to, or you can try, or you can do, even if it's just for you. But you need to do something. You need to get out there and actually work at it.
And especially finding other people that have something in common with you. Um, we'll go into this later, but that just opens the conversation up even more whenever you do get to make those first steps. Like just being at an anime convention, you're like, "Oh, you like anime? Well, of course I do. I'm at an anime convention. It makes sense."
Yeah, and I think the most recent anime convention we went to probably has a great example. I didn't go to a lot of it. I was
Same.
incredibly tired. I was incredibly busy that weekend. So I went for a few hours, including our 2 panels that we did. This was IkiCon in Austin, Texas, by the way. Uh,
Great convention.
yeah, it really is, isn't it? Um, but yeah, I spoke to people who really weren't all that confident. There were some who approached me after our Social Otaku panel to thank me for the panel and how it helped them, but what stood out to me more were the people who were very clearly uncomfortable, who I just decided, you know what, I'm going to talk to this person. I don't even remember what my reasoning was. I just felt like I wanted to talk to them, and just by talking to someone for that long, they started to look more comfortable. They started to look more confident. So if you can find a group that you can go to, or bring a friend, like we said earlier, as you're going out, that's a really helpful way of maintaining your composure and keeping yourself, I don't want to say keeping yourself social, but keeping yourself in check from that self-doubt and that feeling of alienation when you don't necessarily need it.
And that's also a reason why we're doing this podcast right now. We're not doing it for us. Well, we kind of are, but
Well, yeah.
what we're really doing it is for you guys listening. Hopefully, you've come from the panel that we just did and we directed you to this YouTube channel. I think it's definitely for you guys more than it is for us.
Yeah, and this has kind of been a passion project of mine for a while, is helping people like myself become more confident, because I'm gonna have to brag again, and Elliot knows I hate bragging, but it's
Yes.
necessary, so I need to get it off my chest. I have gone from a social outcast with almost zero social skills to probably one of the more charismatic people in our group. Probably, I would say, in my regular group of friends, the most charismatic.
I would agree.
I've gotten a job. I don't work with them anymore, but I got a job briefly with an entertainment company, and their job was to go out to bars and lounges and clubs and host trivia nights, host karaoke, DJ. And the idea was to get people engaged, and usually the point was, even if very few people ended up doing the trivia themselves, I was to interact with everyone, and I got that job solely on my charisma. I had no history in that field whatsoever. All it was I replied to something on LinkedIn. They decided to interview me because it was okay enough, and then I went to the interview, and I pretty much immediately got on his good graces with my charisma. And that's something that you'll need to decide for yourself. You'll need to set yourself a goal. What do I want? Do I just want to be more comfortable in social situations? If that's the case, you don't necessarily need to work as hard as I did and continue to do to be more social and charismatic. Like right now, I give tours in downtown Austin on the weekend mornings. You don't have to go as far as to be some type of public speaker. You don't have to be doing the panels at anime conventions. You don't have to do stand-up. You don't have to be the life of the party. But that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be the life of the party. Not even necessarily the life of the party. I just wanted to have that charisma that I saw other people have, because that really spoke to me.
Yeah.
So I think
I was,
oh yeah, go ahead.
and also like, I think being social and putting yourself out there is definitely like, oh my gosh. Do you know the stats on how many people's biggest fears is public speaking?
I don't have that stat on hand.
I've only heard it through means like colloquial speaking, so I don't know the exact stats offhand, but I heard like people's biggest fear is like public speaking. Like sometimes greater than like
Oh,
shark attacks and stuff like that.
74.7%.
My gosh, that is a staggering number.
Yeah. So 74 point no, 74%, not point. 74% of Americans are more scared of speaking, not even necessarily public speaking, but just speaking in general to other people is one of the biggest fears that people have. Because I was looking at that, I may have read that wrong, but it specified it as was speaking anxiety. So at some point I'll need to look more into that to see what exactly they mean by speaking anxiety. But let's take it as just public speaking. That's 74% of people who would rather be and the stat that I'm looking at, the next highest thing, which is about 10%, is the fear of going under the poverty line. It is the fear of being out of money. So more people are scared of speaking in public than are scared of going bankrupt and being on the street, or even just not having enough money that month.
That's a staggering stat. And it always kind of, I don't know, maybe Mr. Extrovert over here. I'm always wanting to be Mr. Center of the party, life of the party. I don't mind public speaking at all, but I didn't know that many people were not into that. It kind of caught me off guard a little bit.
Yeah, you knew it was a big number, because we all know the colloquial that the number one fear is public speaking. But knowing the actual number is incredible. So the last thing I wanted to talk about, and I don't know exactly how long we're going to talk about this, but the last thing I want to talk about as far as building confidence is going to be self-discovery. That can be anything from things like we said earlier, finding things you enjoy and just doing them, going out with friends and just kind of finding things that make you you. The reason why I'm bringing this up last, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, is because this really does get more complicated. And this really does require... I don't know if we could necessarily cover this in a podcast, but I'm gonna try. The reason why I say I'm gonna try, I'm not necessarily gonna try it in the Social Otaku main podcast, but at some point, once I get more podcasts going, and once this is a bit of a better format, I'm gonna bring in another friend. His name is Colin. He might join us for some of the main podcasts as well. But my best friend, best friend in the whole world, Colin. He and I, for a very long time, have been discussing philosophy and, kind of metaphysics. Which metaphysics, if you think that metaphysics means like woo-woo magic stuff, that's just because the term has been thrown around a lot by some of the new agey types. But to not get too deep into it, just think of metaphysics as thought, as things that go on in your mind, in your brain. So at some point we're going to be doing a podcast just on discussing philosophy and metaphysics and self-discovery and things like that, because one, I want to talk about it. I think it'd be a fun podcast, but two, that's also something that's really helped me be more confident. I managed to be better at my job while I was still working at that call center when I started reading the Tao Te Ching. Believe it or not. So Colin and I constantly look into and discuss new things. It may not surprise you at this point, but sometimes when Colin and I go out drinking, we'll spend most, if not the entire night, discussing philosophy. Because, that's what you go out to bars and lounges for, is to discuss philosophy. But that is something that I do recommend people look into. At least pick up, because it's free. You can find it free almost anywhere.
Yeah.
Just pick up a copy of the Tao Te Ching. Another one I recommend, a book I recommend, although you can't find it for free, is How to Win Friends and Influence People. Is a really good one. But look for some of these philosophy books or things of that nature and kind of explore yourself, or at the very least find things that you're passionate about and talk about those things with your friends and really put thought into it and try to find something that is inherently you. So there are things that I would point out as things that are inherently me. So my voice tends to be one that a lot of people gravitate towards. And even before I had, accepted that my voice was actually pleasant to listen to, because I'm always super critical of my voice, even before then, I wanted to do voice acting. So that's just something that really I'm passionate about, and that's something that is important to me, because yes, I do thankfully have a natural baritone and a naturally smooth voice, but a lot of my skills when it comes to voice acting and things like that comes from me playing around with my voice, comes from me putting a lot of effort into it, comes from me reading books and watching lectures and going to master classes about voiceover or just improving your voice, and the years upon years I had as a choral singer, which Elliot, you're still a choral singer, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I used to sing in a choir. I sang in a few choirs, actually. And eventually I stopped that. It wasn't my cup of tea, but that helped me with my voice. And if I didn't have those experiences, I feel like even with my voice being as pleasant to listen to some people as it is, I wouldn't be as confident in what I'm doing or as impassioned about it, I would say.
Yeah, self-discovery is definitely a good topic, I think, to end on. For me, I've been talking about it all the time. Music for me, but also going into the nerd part, video games, and I'd say music took me a long time to figure out. That's really what I wanted to do. I I went to college for it. I actually wanted to be a chemistry major first. I thought my true calling was chemistry, but you know, OChem happened and that destroyed all dreams. But I still kept music. I was like, maybe I could do a music chemistry double major, and then it just became a music major. And that's really what it came down to. Just finding something. And let me tell you, it took years. I had to sing in like a rock band to destroy my voice every day to get better at singing. By the way, don't do that. Don't destroy your voice like that. I've recently realized
Yeah.
that's how you get nodes. But it grew my voice incredibly to be a very high tenor, and just practicing saxophone a lot. And a lot of what I do is listening. I figured out I think my true calling is listening. Not only to people and what they say, but to music itself. People say I'm a good listener. So
Yeah, you really are, and that's part of why you were so good at the call center.
yeah.
That and just your nature of just wanting everyone else to be having a good time, because you want to have a good time, which means everyone else should be having a good time.
Yes.
And that really helped.
Yes. I'd come up with stupid sayings like eating good in the neighborhood. Love that one. I'm still using that, by the way, to this day.
I used
Much
that a
to my
couple
friend.
times, actually.
Much to my friend's chagrin sometimes.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, I have to bring this up because he just reminded me of the whole good as gravy thing. Like he would say, like he said, eating good in the neighborhood, as just like, oh, we're doing good, we're in a good place. Yeah, you succeeded at doing the technical thing that I told you to do, or something like that. And he would say, oh, we're eating good in the neighborhood. Well, at one point he started saying, oh, looks like we're good as gravy. And apparently,
Oh, this is good.
apparently, this one lady was just she didn't like gravy, and she thought that it was important to tell Elliot that she didn't like gravy, so good as gravy was not good to her. I was like, it just
I think I was on. I think I honestly didn't say anything for about 5 seconds on that call and was like, okay, see ya.
Yeah, so sometimes people are weird. My mind is racing with other things we could get into, but definitely shouldn't get into too many other things. But yeah, self-discovery is very important, because if you don't know who you are, then there's no one to be confident about.
Yes.
So I think for now, we'll leave it there. We'll try to do a stream again next week, same time, 7 o'clock Central Time. And yeah, we'll try to get into more of these topics, and we can definitely tell that we'll need to at least put up bullet points so that we can more easily transition into things or remember what we're talking about.
It's kind of our first time doing this too. We like, as we're preaching, like, hey, we should go out and do stuff. Like, hey, we should go out and do a podcast. Like, we're going